thanks for watching Tim Talks Tabletop. I'm Tim and I love to play games. If you do want to check out my channel, I do have some other videos of some one-life challenges I've been doing on some retro games. I've also got an old review show called Level Up, and there's a video of me playing through a game that I made. Today though, I wanted to branch out and start talking about board games. Now in these videos, I am just going to talk about the mechanics of the game, some of the components, and talk about what I like about them. I'm not necessarily going to score or review the games, I'm just going to talk about games in my personal collection that I recommend. And the first game I'm going to talk about is Dice Forge. And if you don't have Dice Forge in your games collection, I do highly recommend it. It's a very good game for some of your hardcore gamers out there, but also it's very accessible to your non-gamer friends or your friends that are only into sort of light, easy games. So it's very easy to pick up and it's got some really fun mechanics. So first off, let's have a closer look at what comes inside the box for Dice Forge. Right, so let's have a closer look at what's inside the box for Dice Forge. Your recommended age for this is 10 plus. It's 2 to 4 players and takes roughly 45 minutes, which I think is an ideal length for a game really. If you're going to try and convince someone to come up and play a game, if it's 45 minutes long, that's not too daunting, is it, to get started. So here's the instruction manual. It's a fairly brief manual that gives you the quick reference for what the different cards in the game do. And it gives you that player turn summary, and all the instructions are just on your 2 sheets there, so it's not too intimidating to pick up and learn. You will need to spend some time learning the game. Once you've picked it up and started playing, it's quite easy to teach other players how to pick it up. You can just sort of walk them through their turn. And this game's got some really nice components. You see it's all packed together. This tray keeps the different dice faces connected nicely, and we will come back and have a look at that in just a moment. I'm just going to keep that to one side and we'll have a look at what else is in the box. So this is the board, and the board opens up, and quite a nice feature, I really like this, that the game box itself becomes part of the game, and you actually notice this lines up here with the board. So you lay out all your cards and this actually connects up to here, and you will actually have the bits you can purchase for your dice up on this tray, and I'll show you that in just a moment. But I quite like that it incorporates the box into the game. So you have your character sheets. So you've got up to 4 different characters that are represented by different colours. So each player piece is a different colour on there. And you've got your 4 players, so up to 4. So you've got your sort of turquoise, teal sort of colour, orange, black and green. And then you have your markers here to measure how much of each resource you have. So the main point of the game is earning victory points, and in order to do that you want to be collecting resources. So this here, for example, here I've got this colour player, you'll put a marker in each resource to show how much of that you have. And you'll see you've got gold, you've got what's called sunstones and what's called moonstones, and then your victory points. And you can spend these resources throughout the game to level up your dice. So each player is given 2 dice, and you've got, let's see, I've got one on this side and that side. So the dice are slightly different shades, so you can track them. And each dice starts off with fairly small amounts of resources. You see here, you've got a 1 gold, and on this dice you've got a 1 moon, and on this dice you've got, again, mostly 1 gold, you've got 1 sunstone on there. So it's fairly low resources to start. And what you then do is you collect cards throughout the game that are purchased off of the board, and I'll show you that in a moment when we set it all up. So I'll do a transition into a setup game so we can have a closer look. The one thing I do like about this game as well is you have some more advanced cards, and they've got a little marker on the back so you know that it's for the advanced game. So the first few times you play without these cards, leave them in the box. And if you think, you know what, I'm understanding this game, I want to add in some extra elements, you can then play with these more complex cards. So I'm now going to set up the game, and I'll give you a quick overview of how you actually play. Okay, so here is a closer look at a setup game. So the first thing you'll notice, I'm not sure how well it comes out on the camera, but I mentioned earlier this lines up to the box. You've got your dice faces up here. And the cards line up really nicely to the game board, so I think that's really good attention to detail, and it's nice to see that the game board is expanded by the cards there. So I've set this up for a 4-player game, and one of the starting conditions is the first player starts off with more gold, and you get less gold as you go round. So the person that goes first starts off with 3 gold, then 2, then 1, then 0. And the reason for that, and the reason I really like this game, one of my favourite things about this game, is that the first step of a turn is all players roll their dice and receive the resources they roll. So even when it's not your turn, you're constantly rolling, constantly gaining resources in between your goes, and then you get to spend it on your turn. So as the first player, you roll your dice, and then you have an opportunity to spend your resources. And at that point, you've only rolled once, so you won't have much to spend. Whereas by the time you get to player 4, they've rolled their dice 4 times before they have their first turn, which means they're going to have a lot more resources to spend. So that's why there's a bit of a tier there of how you start with gold. The game is played a set number of rounds. There is a first player marker which is passed around, and then there's a round marker which shows you which round you are on. So the game automatically ends at the end of the first round. Each player gets a pawn to represent where they are, and they can go to different places on this board to choose to buy the cards in that space. Now if another player goes to that space, they get bumped off and returned, and they then actually get to do a dice roll when you land there. So there's a perk to actually being bumped off of a space. So once everyone's rolled their dice and claimed their resources, you then get the opportunity to either spend your gold up here and buy new dice faces, or spend your moonstones and sunstones to buy the cards that give you victory points and perks. So as I said, the aim of the game is to get victory points, and there's different ways of doing that. So let's have a quick look at the dice faces here, and this, the quality of these components are really good, and one of the reasons I like this game so much. So let's say I've got some gold I want to spend. All these dice faces here cost different amounts of gold. There's some dice faces down here which you obtain from cards, most of which are the advanced cards in the extended game, which again isn't an expansion, it comes with the game, which I think is fantastic. It's not sold separately as an expansion, you can play with the different cards. One thing on that I will note, it's the starting cards have the dots on, not the extended ones. I thought it was the other way around, so I misspoke earlier in the video. So when you first do your first setup of a game, it's the cards with the dots on the back that you want to play with, not the other way around. So let's say I've got 3 gold to spend. I can then actually get this 4 gold dice face. So if I land on that, I'm going to get 4 gold instead of 1. So I can take one of my 1 gold dice faces. I'll see if I can show you something. It's quite easy to get off. You can actually use the dice face itself and get it underneath, and you can actually ping it off. It comes off quite easily. And then you can get your new dice face and clip it in. So you're actually levelling up your dice, and you're actually, hence the name Dice Forge, you're actually building new dice out of the components itself. So then when you roll, you've got a chance of actually landing on the 4, which I actually did then. That was quite a fortunate roll for the sake of the video. So I'm just going to ping that off again. You see it comes off. I don't know if I've shown that very well. Let me just do that again. If I do it near the centre of the board, you can just ping it off like that and clip the other one on. Very easy to get on and off, so I quite like how smooth that operates. Then you've got the cards. So the cards are kind of the key to victory, really. They give you different perks and benefits. Now on each card, you will have either a cog, which is something you do on your turn, or a whirlwind, which is something that happens instantaneously. So I'll work my way around the board and show you the different cards for the starting game. So you can get this hammer, which you can then obtain one of these tokens. And when you flip the card over, you'll notice there's a tracker. So every time you get gold, you can choose to either put gold in your reserve or put it into this tracker. And when it gets to the top, you get 10 victory points. You can then flip it over and do a second run, and you can get 15, and then the card has fulfilled its use. That's actually a really good one if you're getting a lot of gold, because you can only put so much gold in your reserve, and if you then roll more gold, you can put it into that card instead and not lose it. And similarly, you can get this card, which has got 2 victory points as you obtain it, and you get an extender. So the extendeds are just here, so they actually clip onto the end of your character sheet, and it allows you to store more gold, more sunstones, and more moonstones. So that's a really useful thing to have as well. And as you go around the board, you'll see there's lots of different things you can do with your cards. So this one, very powerful card actually, is on your turn, because again it's got a cog, so it only happens on your go. You get to roll an extra 1 dice. So the good thing about that is, at the start of your turn, everyone rolls 2, and then you get to roll an extra 1 if it's your go, giving you resources a lot quicker. This is a bit of an odd one. It's worth 6 points. Now this means all players roll 2 dice, and then you get to pick any dice faces you want to actually use for yourself. The players that roll them don't get them. You get to pick 2, so it gives you a good choice to perhaps one to get later in the game when players have unlocked some more interesting dice faces. You do have ones like this that actually have no details on them at all, but as you see, it's worth a lot of victory points, and it's quite an expensive card. So near the end of the game, you want to be buying stuff like this. This is a dice face one, so if you buy this card, you obtain that dice face, and that is this one here, and that is the ×3. So whatever you rolled on the other dice is then multiplied by 3. So that's quite a powerful one to get, especially if you're landing on, like I say, a high number of victory points. There's a few more here. I don't necessarily need to all of them, but you can roll both your resource dice twice, which allows you to get lots of resources straight away. And this one here, which can be the key to winning the game. I think every time I've played, I've actually got this card, and that is, it doesn't do anything other than give you 26 victory points, which is quite high, but it costs 5 moonstones and 5 sunstones, so it's quite a lot of points to get, and can be the tipping point. And as you can see, you've got some other cards around here that you can choose, and you can learn about those as you play. And yeah, that is Dice Forge. Well, thank you for watching Tim Talks Tabletop. I hope you found the video useful, and hopefully it's helped you decide if you think Dice Forge is a game that you want to add to your own collection. I think my favourite things about Dice Forge are that even when you're not the active player, you're still rolling for resources every turn, so it still keeps you engaged throughout the whole game. I also think it's great that it comes with those extra cards, so if you want to add to the game and have a more complex game once you pick to the basics, you've got the option to do that as well, which I think is great. I hope to do more videos like this, talking about other games in my collection that I'd recommend, and I hope to get some recommendations from you, as I'd love to add to my collection. Well, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.